Learn about the biggest mistakes made by countries throughout history that ended up costing billions of dollars. These errors, often monumental in scale, provide valuable lessons on the consequences of human decisions and their far-reaching financial impacts. Before we get started, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe and click the notification bell for more such amazing content. Spain, Valencia's City of Arts and Sciences. Valencia's City of Arts and Sciences complex was meant to encourage travellers' visits. Despite €7.5 billion in expenditures, it has failed to do so. The project, Fergus O'Sullivan said, is the gift that keeps on taking. The initial cost of the museum-cum-art centre quadrupled to €1 billion before its completion in 2005. Even then, it continued to cost the government money, both for a €4.5 billion bailout to the region in which Valencia is located and for repairs to the complex's opera house. The structure's metal shell buckles as it expands and contracts due to the city's daily temperature extremes. In 2014, inspectors found that the 1,000 tiny mosaic-like tiles covering the metal sheets in the shell had to be removed, a task that'll cost another €3 million. Santiago Calatrava, the architect who designed the complex, says that poor construction, not his design, is responsible for the structure's problems, but O'Sullivan maintains there's plenty of blame to go around, including failed or underperforming projects, kickbacks, and an unnecessary airport nearby. Saudi Arabia's farming boondoggle. Charles J. Hanley, writing for the New York Times, points out that the Saudi government has tried to portray agriculture as a major success, but the reality is quite different. They've spent a whopping $13 billion on subsidizing crops that are too expensive to grow, and they've even left huge piles of grain in the desert to spoil. All of this was done to make it seem like Saudi Arabia, a country known for its oil, was also a major wheat exporter, which isn't natural. Despite having plenty of oil money, Saudi Arabia can't replace the water wasted on growing these crops. Because of this, they've given up on the idea of trying to farm around 4 million acres of desert land. Some have suggested raising cattle as an alternative to growing wheat, but even that idea raises concerns because it would require a lot of water to feed the animals. Agriculture Minister Abdullah bin Moammar acknowledges that such a project could easily spiral out of control. Germany's renewable energy project. In 2002, Germany made the decision to gradually reduce its use of nuclear power, as reported by Rick Mills. However, 8 years later, Chancellor Angela Merkel had to extend the operation of the country's nuclear reactors. This extension was necessary because Germany anticipated it wouldn't be able to generate enough power solely from renewable energy sources. Unfortunately, due to political factors, Germany abruptly reduced its electricity supply by 40% while planning to eliminate the rest of its nuclear power by 2022. Just a year before the deadline, 3 out of the remaining 6 nuclear plants were shut down. As anticipated, renewable energy sources couldn't meet the country's power needs, causing energy prices to sharply increase. This led to the failure of Germany's $16 billion green energy initiative, forcing the country to return to relying on coal and nuclear energy. England's car parks. In England, millions of pounds have been spent on parking garages and lots that few drivers use. According to the British Parking Association, there are between 17,000 and 20,000 car parks across the country. Some are multi-storey garages, while others are simply surface lots. Some car parks have attracted antisocial behaviour, an online Guardian article reports. Abbey Walk in North East Lincolnshire is one such location. The county's council has requested £1.54 million to fund a refurbishment programme. Communities hope to cash in on the massive boondoggle by repurposing the car parks as shopping centres, cultural or performance centres or office spaces, but it remains to be seen whether such conversions will pay off since online shopping and out-of-town retail parks have already taken a toll on stores and other businesses located in the city centres. Mexico's Mayan train. According to an article in Nation magazine, there are concerns and criticism surrounding Mexico's $20 billion Mayan train project. However, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador is determined to build this 900-mile or 1,448-kilometer railway in southeastern Mexico, with a focus on showcasing indigenous history and culture to tourists while prioritizing the inclusion of the country's indigenous communities. A portion of the train's route passes through the Calakmul Biosphere Reserve, a 3,000 square mile or 4,828 square kilometre Mayan forest, which is also home to the ancient Mayan city of Calakmul. This region is currently facing a prolonged drought, raising questions about the wisdom of bringing in 8,000 tourists per day, despite the government's promise of a new aqueduct to address water needs. Many of the indigenous people, along with their conservationist and academic supporters who were supposed to benefit from the train project, see it as an act of war. They fear it'll harm southern Mexico's ecosystem, lead to unsustainable development, and further marginalize the local communities. Instead of honoring and involving Mexico's indigenous peoples, the Mayan train appears to have alienated and angered them. Japan's Great Tsunami Walls. In a 2011 earthquake beneath the Pacific Ocean, Koizumi, Japan experienced devastating towering waves, as recounted by Irish Times contributor David McNeil. This calamity claimed the lives of 4 individuals, and nearly all of the town's 1,800 residents who lived along the coast were swept away. In response to the need for preventing such catastrophic events in the future, government officials announced an ambitious plan to construct hundreds of sea walls and breakers. These protective measures were intended to safeguard the 3 worst-hit prefectures and were set to be followed by similar projects. While the cost of these initiatives would amount to a staggering €6 billion, they aimed to secure the safety of residents residing along Japan's extensive 21,748-mile or 35,000-kilometre coastline, spanning a total of 8,699 miles or 14,000 kilometres and in need of tsunami protection. Despite the noble intentions behind this endeavour, it faced criticism from detractors who highlighted the mixed results of previous similar efforts. Some even voiced concerns that these barriers might instill a false sense of security among residents. Hiroko Otsuka, who had grown up near Koizumi and lost her mother and brother during the 2011 flood, feared that such structures might lead people to believe they are completely safe. Otsuka believed that, like her family, those affected should reconsider the notion of building barriers to protect against tsunamis. China's Three Gorges Dam. Chinese government officials disregarded the advice of scientists who cautioned against constructing the enormous Three Gorges Dam for hydroelectric purposes. It was only after the completion of this colossal dam, which stands as the largest in the world and came with a hefty price tag of $24 billion, that these officials conceded that the scientists' warnings about potential landslides and the disruption of entire ecosystems, among other serious environmental issues, might have been linked to the dam's construction. While proponents of the project had initially envisioned the dam as a significant source of renewable energy, capable of generating 18,000 megawatts of power to meet the nation's energy demands, the consequences of building the dam have also included adverse effects such as reduced rainfall, drought, and an increased risk of disease, as noted by tropical medicine specialist George Davis. Moreover, in June 2003, a rockslide resulted in the tragic loss of 14 lives, and numerous landslides have occurred, with one incident involving a bus burial that claimed the lives of at least 30 people. Experts worry that even more serious consequences may be on the horizon. Canada's 407 Express toll road. Canada has experienced its fair share of costly blunders, including what Benjamin Hunting describes as a bridge too far, an airport in the middle of nowhere, and a boat that won't stay afloat. One of the most expensive missteps was the 407 Express toll road. Construction on this project began in 1987 and was finally completed in 2001, racking up a staggering bill of $3.1 billion. The government claimed that they managed to reduce the cost to $1.6 million by allowing a private consortium to lease the road for a whopping 99 years. It's important to note that this figure doesn't include the additional $100 billion spent on acquiring the land needed for the highway. To the surprise of many, the company leasing the highway hiked up the toll charges to the point where drivers, especially those in commercial trucks, chose to endure traffic on Highway 401 rather than use the expensive toll road. In a rather ironic twist, a highway originally intended to alleviate congestion was now causing it, and toll rates continued to soar. Adding insult to injury, in 2019, SNC-Lavalin Group, one of the partners involved in leasing the toll road, sold 10.1% of its ownership for a staggering $3.25 billion. This valuation put the entire operation at a staggering $30 billion. which is 10 times the amount originally paid to the Ontario government. USA's Yucca Mountain Nuclear Waste Repository. The expenses associated with constructing the Yucca Mountain Nuclear Repository in the United States have surged to a staggering $38 billion. This includes both the construction costs and the prolonged political battles between those who support the site's opening and those who oppose it. Situated near Mercury, Nevada, within 100 miles of Las Vegas, the repository was designed to house the 88,000 tons or 79,838 metric tons of nuclear waste generated by the country's 80 nuclear plants over the years. A 5-mile or 8-kilometer tunnel built in 1987 at a cost of $19 billion delves deep into the mountain. However, the debate over the site's utilization continues to rage. Scientists are concerned that the stored waste could contaminate underground water, posing a threat to local farmers. The Department of Energy's William Boyle assured CBS News correspondent Jonathan Vigliotti that this risk is manageable. Adding to the complexity, Nevada's U.S. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto pointed out that the railroad cars carrying the radioactive fuel would pass through the heart of Las Vegas on their way to the repository. As the debate persists, the accumulation of nuclear waste across the country continues to grow. It's unfortunate that the government did not establish a plan years ago for the secure storage of nuclear waste, which remains radioactive for countless millennia. Australia's submarine purchase. In 2011, the Australian federal government, known as the Turnbull government at the time, made a significant acquisition of 12 French short-fin Barracuda submarines. As highlighted by John Menadue, the initial cost amounted to a substantial $50 billion. This initial expense was just the tip of the iceberg as the submarine's design and pricing unfolded in an unprecedented and essentially competition-free environment. Moreover, there were restrictions against sourcing these submarines from international suppliers. Adding to the concerns were strategic issues. The intended deployment of these submarines in the South China Sea along U.S. submarines posed a challenge. In this region, they would be sharing waters with Chinese submarines, which, unlike the French ones, were nuclear-powered. This raised questions about the effectiveness of the French submarines as a deterrence against the Chinese vessels. Moreover, doubts were raised about whether the US Navy would be willing to operate alongside Australia's conventionally powered submarines. In the end, Menadue concluded that this costly purchase was a misstep, labelling it as a boondoggle that had negative implications for policy, the Australian Navy, taxpayers, and the future defence of Australia. In examining these examples of countries' outrageous boondoggles, it becomes clear that extravagant projects, often driven by political ambitions or economic interests, can have far-reaching consequences. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please let us know by clicking the like button, do share, write a comment, and don't forget to subscribe so you can catch up on our next video.